Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Scary Stories. This is the series in which we relive and retell your real-life creepy encounters. From stalkers to Home Alone stories, the wilderness, you name it. Join us today as we cover another set of chilling tales. And as a reminder, if you'd like to be featured on a future episode of Scary Stories, then make sure to send your story in at tcfnarrations@gmail.com. Just remember that story has to remain exclusive. That way we can avoid repeats. Anyways, friends, let's waste no more time and let's begin. Number 1. Robbery at the grocery store. Hey there. I'm pretty new to this whole hearing scary stories on YouTube thing. My friend was actually the one who introduced me to you. And I have to say, I really like what you're doing. Keep up the good work. Now I apologize if I'm not the greatest writer in the world, but I hope this will still make sense to you. Allow me to give you a location and a time. The time, around 8:30 p.m. The place, a local grocery store. My involvement with said grocery store was I worked there stocking shelves and also doing cashier work. So, what happened, you might be asking? Well, it had been another busy Friday evening in the early 1980s, and I was stocking shelves and helping out customers who came to do their weekend shopping. I know for many people, working at a grocery store is looked down upon as lame, but I loved my time there. Mainly because before I started working there, I used to be such a shy mess. You couldn't get me out of my room without me having major anxiety and panic attacks. Slowly but surely, my best friend was able to help me get a job, and that's when I opened up. I only mentioned this past detail of myself because I occasionally had sudden anxiety if I had to deal with stressful situations. I'm sure you can understand where this might be going. We were about 30 minutes before closing, and I was restocking the canned food section. I remember specifically it was the Chef Boyardee cans, and as I had my back turned, I felt somebody tap my shoulder. Hello? Excuse me, young lady. Could you help me with something? I turned my attention to an older man, probably early 60s. Funny enough, he looked just like Santa Claus. Same white beard, white hair, large tummy, and Christmas sweater. This was just a couple of weeks before the Christmas holiday, by the way, which added to his jolly demeanor. Sure, what did you need, sir? I'm looking for the restroom. Could you show me where it is? Yeah, sure, follow me. It's just down aisle 1. Now, the store is fairly small, so it's not that difficult to find what you're looking for. You can also see the front lobby from the back, where we were heading. This is important to note. As we began walking over there, the old man asked how my night was going and if I enjoyed working there. Just friendly talk. And friendly is how I wish the night could have stayed. But then something happened a couple of minutes later that was so unexpected, so scary, that as I write this out to you today, I still get huge chills. When I returned to the front of the store to quickly talk to a coworker, the cashier, someone storms into our grocery store wearing a mask. The dude had a pistol, and both my coworker and I stood there in complete shock as he shouted out his demands to everybody to remain quiet and to make no sort of sudden movement. As this was in the 80s, there was no cell phone for anyone to use or ways of people to record. This was what made the situation that much more bone-chilling.
The two of you, put the money in this backpack and hurry it up,
he exclaimed as I stood there frozen. Meanwhile, my coworker began putting money in the backpack. Some other customers were just watching with their hands up.
You there, can't you follow directions? What did I just say?
He was talking to me, which I was an absolute mess. I was so frozen with fear I couldn't move or say a thing. All I could remember happening was my life flashing before my very own eyes, as if things couldn't get worse, or maybe I should say better, whichever you want to define it as. We hear a loud bang echo through the store. That was followed by glass at the front of the store shattering. This guy suddenly took off, dropping the pistol in the process. Turns out the old man I'd helped just a few minutes ago was concealed carrying and shot over in our direction, missing the masked man by a few inches. Since we weren't in the old man's line of sight, as we were covered by some of the displays, there's no way of him hitting us. Nevertheless, the old man chased after the masked man, and he returned just a few moments later. "Don't worry, everybody. I'm on your side. Is everybody okay?" We all let out a sigh as my coworker was already phoning the officers. By the time they got there, the place was surrounded with yellow caution tape, and everybody was questioned, including me. As for that so-called pistol, the one the masked man was carrying, it turned out it was a fake. As for the old man, he was an army veteran and the father of the town's police chief. Talk about a small world. Thankfully, it didn't take too long for the creep to be caught, and he was put behind bars. Number 2. She was part of the act. This happened in the late 1990s in rural West Virginia. I'm female, by the way, and I was in my late 20s. I was working as a security guard for a private company, and I was just getting out of work at around 5:30 in the morning. As I was driving home, about a 30-minute drive through the countryside, I noticed a woman at the side of the road. Being the kind soul I am, I decided to stop and ask what was wrong. Nothing about her seemed too suspicious. She was average-looking, wearing typical street clothing, and I'd say in her early 30s. "Oh, thank goodness you stopped. My car battery just died. Do you mind helping me jump-start it? I have the cables and all." She then pointed her flashlight to what looked like a vehicle parked behind some bushes. Now, I did mention I had no sort of suspicion about her, but something about the whole situation felt off. I mean, what were the chances of this woman being stuck out here in the middle of nowhere, and at the crack of dawn? When I tried asking her if she tried waving anybody down, she told me I was the first one she had seen in the past 45 minutes. Well, whatever the case was, I drove off of the road, and I followed close behind her for about 20 seconds, eventually arriving at the vehicle. It was a dark blue minivan with its windows completely tinted out. I found it strange that out of all vehicles she would have something like that, but to each their own, I guess. "Hypothetically speaking, if you were to disappear, would your family miss you?" she asked me as I got out of the driver's seat, laughing immediately after with a creepy smile. I nervously laughed at her, and I said something along the lines of, "So, I guess that's how you greet all strangers, huh?" "Yeah, you got me." As we start to get closer to her vehicle, I noticed she kept looking into the wilderness around us, almost as if she was looking for someone. I only noticed it because she wouldn't answer my questions. "Hey, is something wrong?" "No, I just really want to go home to my kids, that's all." I sympathized with her since I had my own family, but that sympathy wouldn't last forever. All of a sudden, we began to hear footsteps approaching. She immediately got behind me, shaking with fear, when two large figures appeared. They were wearing all black clothing, wearing masks, and grabbing onto large knives. "Look, we don't want any trouble. My car broke down, that's all. Please, just take whatever you want," the woman said, as they began inching their way closer.
"Oh, we already got what we needed. Nice work, Bree."
Side note, that wasn't actually her name, as I don't remember the exact name they called her, but they named her regardless. Back to what I was saying. Bree. Who in the world was Bree? I couldn't believe what happened next. The woman, the one that I had just met, started to laugh, and then she latched onto my arm. "You aren't going anywhere. Do as we say, and we promise not to do anything to you." This was a setup, and I'd fallen for it. I sort of stood there in disbelief, not so much for the fact these three were working together, but for the fact I actually did a good deed, only to be turned on. "Well, sorry, sister, but I wasn't going to show you any mercy." See, they weren't aware of my secret. Yes, I was a security guard with training, but I'm also a black belt in martial arts. I still am, by the way, and I'm now an instructor. Anyways, I managed to get out of her hold fairly simply, but now I had to deal with the two blocking my way to my vehicle. But that was the least of my concern. I heard this girl get back up, and I could see even she had taken out a knife. It was 3 against 1. So, what was I going to do? Well, I didn't have to do much because the 3 of them decided to rush me all at once. Nice job. You left yourselves wide open. I dodged them by rolling to my side at the last second, and then I used the momentum to kick myself forward to my vehicle. I get in there, only for them to start knocking and banging on my door. I left them with one last surprise. I had a pistol in my glove compartment, and I take it out. The look of shock on their face said it all. With the window slightly pulled down, I end up telling them, "If you even dare follow me out of here, I won't have a single problem ending the 3 of you. Do you understand me?" They booked it into their minivan, and they drove away. So much for the vehicle battery dying. Anyways, the rest of that morning was uneventful. I went to the police station and I reported the incident. I never heard anything back, however, but I just hope I scared them enough that morning. They learned never to attempt robbing anybody again. Well, at least I can assume they were trying to rob me. I sometimes question what exactly it was they were after, but whatever the outcome would have been, it wouldn't have been fun. Hey there, I hope you're enjoying today's episode. Before we continue, I want to take this opportunity to thank my channel members: Robbie, Bo, Kim, Spunky the Nutcase, Tabitha, and Ingrid. If you'd like to help support what I do here along with getting early access, then make sure to check out the channel memberships. It's right next to where it says subscribe. Anyways, let's continue. Number 3. Online Creep Finds My Home. Our first submission comes to us from a subscriber that tells us of a time they dealt with a real-life predator. Now they've asked to remain anonymous, and we'll honor that request. So here's that story. Some time ago, I began my adventure into Tap Sports Baseball, an online mobile game. Not too long after I got started, I learned it was possible to create clubs without signing up for any sort of membership or pay-to-win scheme. I came up with the name Lion Clan, a reference to one of my favorite past novel series. Soon after, I logged into the chat room, and I started to spread the word of, "Hey everyone, my name's such and such. If anybody's interested in joining my clan, you're more than welcome to." Surprisingly, it didn't take too long to acquire the maximum amount of players, where soon after, I had a post in her chat and say, "Be advised, there's no more space. If you're looking to join, you're gonna have to wait until somebody leaves." Anyways, I began to chat with the leader of another club, and I got to know him fairly well. In this story, I'm going to refer to him as Leon. Me being the naive person I was, I gave Leon my personal information, and worst of all, my phone number. Please remember that detail. I then started to talk to another player, and I ended up getting a message from Leon. He then asked me how I would rate my prettiness. I then asked my mom, and then she asks me what I was doing. I mentioned I'd been talking to someone in an online mobile game, and she of course told me to uninstall it, with my dad going further to state that person I was talking to was most likely a predator. So I ended up blocking Leon. We now fast forward roughly 2 months, and I was at home doing some homework, listening to a brand new video from the Creepy Fox. Out of nowhere, I heard a car pull up, and I began questioning who it could be. At the time, no one was supposed to be getting home, and I'm the only house on the block. That was what I found so confusing, but that would be the least of my concern. Someone then began knocking on my front door, and I recognized them. It was Leon, as he had sent me a picture of himself not too long before he showed up. That's why I was able to recognize him. He, however, was 25, but he told me he was 11. Well, somehow, someway, this dude managed to track my number, as I had an iPhone, and he used Find My iPhone to track me. Remember when I gave him my information? Anyways, what made things worse was he had a machete and a hunting rifle. I slammed the door in his face, and I called the cops, and for the next few minutes, I heard him knocking on the door and screaming. I then hid in my room and I locked my door, begging officers to get there. In what seemed like an eternity, but was honestly maybe a short time, I eventually heard sirens, followed by people yelling. The cops had arrived. Soon after, I have one of the officers squeeze their badge under my door, just to confirm it was truly them. It was the real deal, so I walk outside. Leon was put on probation for attempted breaking and entering, and my parents quickly came home for dinner. So if there's one thing I can hopefully pass on to others, it's this. Please be very careful with who you talk to online, as well as who you give your information to. Number 4. Late Night Run Nightmare. To this day, I have no clue who exactly it was I stumbled into. I haven't seen any police reports regarding them either, so it's very possible he's still out there. I just don't really know. For context, I live in Sweden, and this took place about 3 years ago. At the time, both myself and a friend had challenged ourselves to see who could become the most fit in 90 days. I guess you could compare it to a New Year's resolution. Whoever won would have to pay for the other's plane ticket, in which we were planning on going to the Bahamas. Spoiler alert, I ended up winning by a landslide, since my friend got lazy about halfway through. Anyways, along with a change of diet that went to vegetables and shakes, I began to run a lot more on nature trails. There was one in particular I enjoyed going to, because of all the people that went there. I'm sort of a social person, and it's actually how I met my girlfriend while she was walking her dog. Now, one day the trail had closed due to recent heavy rains, which messed up my running schedule. I wasn't really looking forward to going to the gym, so I thought perhaps I could look for another location to run at. I mean, it had been a few days since the rain, but I wasn't risking driving to the dirt trail only to be unable to do my exercise. Therefore, I decided to go to a different running trail that my friend goes to. It actually has a running track, thus avoiding any sort of mud. As I hadn't gotten out of work until 6 p.m. that day, I arrived at around 6:30 with my flashlight, as it was already dark. The parking lot was completely empty, which meant I wouldn't be seeing anyone, so I thought. I began running, and about halfway through, the track branches off into a small set of woods. It's here there's a couple of picnic benches, as well as a water fountain. At this point, I decided to take a quick break to tie my shoes and grab some water. As I stood there drinking the water, listening to some music, I suddenly felt something pressed against my back. I tried moving, but then somebody takes one of my earphones out of my ear, and they whisper,
"Don't move or say a thing. This is a robbery. Give me all your belongings, and I promise to let you go."
I froze in fear, unaware of how dumb I was for letting my guard down in such an abandoned wooded area. I did as I was instructed, slowly taking out my iPod from my pocket, and then placing it as well as my smartwatch on the bench beside me.
"Okay, turn around slowly and face me."
By this point, I'm shaking and filled with sweat and fear. Finally seeing the man, he had a bandana covering half his face, and he was wearing a hoodie and large sunglasses. You wouldn't believe it, but the guy had a pistol. I'm so very lucky I chose not to make any sort of sudden actions.
"If you tell anybody about me, I will find you, and I will end you. Understand?"
Then, he grabs my things, and he runs into the forest, never for me to see him again. I sort of just stood there in shock to what just happened, finally snapping out of it when I felt some raindrops on my head. Instead of calling the police, as I should have, I drove over to the police station and gave them my statement there. By the way, my phone and wallet were in the car, which is why he didn't take them. Anyways, as I hadn't seen the person's face, there wasn't much I could tell them, other than where the robbery occurred and the approximate time. They never did contact me for updates, so it was safe to assume, as I mentioned in the beginning, he had gotten away. Number 5. A night we would never forget. So my friend and I decided to head to McDonald's one evening. That way we could get some McFlurries and enjoy the wonderful peaceful evening. The time was approximately 11 p.m. As we sat there, we noticed a man enter the McDonald's with a couple of duffel bags. He placed them on the ground, and then he began talking to himself, holding a coffee cup. For the next few minutes, he went in and out of the McDonald's, and he kept saying something about the train station. Around the 10th time he entered and exited, he went over to some dumpsters, and he stayed over there. I should note that the staff that had been working at that hour were all female, and they were pretty nervous. We're male, by the way. Anyways, two of the girls asked us if we could stay a little bit longer, going further to state they would give us each a free mega meal, which consisted of 2 Big Macs and French fries. So we agreed, as we could see the distress on their faces. A minute or two later, I told my friend Logan to lock the doors on the other side of the McDonald's. I ended up locking the doors near where the train station guy exited, and I could see him continuing to walk back and forth. I soon returned to the front lobby, where the manager asked me to look inside the duffel bags. I'm not even joking. Inside those were some Tech 9s, pistols, and some duct tape with handcuffs. The other had more or less the same, only that it also had some substances. Very scary. With that, we quickly made a call to the RCMP. As we waited there on lockdown, the man began knocking on the front door, demanding we let him back inside. Thank goodness, the police arrived shortly after, and they were able to take him away. It turned out he was wanted by law enforcement in 3 different cities and 4 provinces. He'd even broken out of a psych hospital, and he had some zap straps on him. Apparently, he had wrote in one of his books that he was planning on using that arsenal he had acquired. A very chilling and scary thought for sure. Number 6. Chased through Paris alleyway. This happened in the late 2000s when I was visiting my aunt and uncle in Paris, France. During my month's stay, I hung out with my aunt, who pretty much took me everywhere I wanted to go. We visited coffee shops, landmarks such as the Eiffel Tower, and even the catacombs, which if you're interested, I have a scary story involving that, but I'll go ahead and send that for another time. Anyways, after about a week, I grew fairly comfortable with the streets, and I was okay with walking around on my own. As my aunt had vacation, she was keeping me company, but now it was just me going out. So fast forward to one evening where I went to a coffee shop to work on some artwork. I sat at an outside table minding my own business, sketching in my sketchbook, and listening to the sounds of the crowded street. Out of nowhere, a man approached me. He, from what I remember in my memory, was in his early 50s. He had short gray hair, a mustache, and normal street clothing, with some reading glasses. I only noticed him because he asked if he could take a seat at my table. Seeing as it was fairly busy that evening, I said sure, and he sits down. I do remember he had no coffee, but just a newspaper and his cigar. Either way, I continued to work on my art, and then he began asking me some questions. I speak French, by the way, since I studied the subject for 2 years in college. Anyways, he started just by asking for my name and if I was from around here, to which I gave him a random name, and I told him I lived in the city. But then he questioned why I had an accent. I explained I had studied in America, but that seemed to anger him for whatever reason. Not sure why. I ignored his nasty comments and I continued to work. But then he began asking some more personal questions, such as if I had a boyfriend or if I was interested in dating older men. I should have mentioned earlier, but I was around 23 years old, and this guy was at least double that. Without giving him too much more information, I looked at my watch and I made some random excuse like, "Oh, would you look at the time? I better get back and start cooking dinner for my family." I excused myself, and I began the 15-minute walk back to the apartment. At this point, I assumed I was done with the creep, just some random guy trying to pick up a date. When I was a few blocks away, I decided to take an alleyway that my aunt had showed me. It acted as a shortcut, and it would save me half the trip. The only downside to it is the lack of lighting, of course. A bummer, but okay with me as I had some pepper spray as a precaution. Once I entered the alleyway, I ended up getting distracted by a cat who walked up to me. She was really friendly, and immediately she started to roll around, as if wanting to be pet. I did, and then she got up and walked over to a box that had some of the cutest kittens I'd ever seen. What I would have done to adopt them all, but what was I to do? Side note before continuing, I ended up telling my aunt and uncle about the cats, and they were able to contact the owners of the apartments. Apparently the cats belonged to no one, but they were able to get them all a good home, so that was nice. Anyways, returning back to my current situation. Out of nowhere, I began to hear footsteps approaching. Before I had a chance to say anything, however, I see that it's the same man from the coffee shop. He had the largest, creepiest grin on his face, one that read, "You're all mine, and no one is going to help you." I freaked out next because he reveals a switchblade, and he essentially had me backed into a dark corner. The man began getting closer, even though I kept telling him I had pepper spray, and I wasn't afraid to use it. Just when I thought I'd have to take this guy down, a cat comes running out of nowhere, which was then followed by a pair of poodles. No kidding. The cat jumped over some large boxes, and the poodles barked. Meanwhile, the cat I had befriended hid in the box of kittens. So, there we were confused, only to be interrupted by another man. This guy was huge. He seriously looked like an American football player. Well, seeing this hunk of a man, my brand new stalker puts the knife back in his pocket, and he just walks away. For real, if he was really as macho as he was claiming to be, why didn't he just stick around? It was pretty obvious. Nonetheless, it turned out these poodles belonged to this man, and they left his side when they saw and chased the cat. I was just so thankful for that series of events taking place. I mean, I had no problem using the pepper spray, but I'd never used it up to that point, which was why I was a bit nervous. Anyways, this man kept me company, and he walked me back to my aunt and uncle's apartment before going on his merry way. And that was it. I no longer went out on my own, and I never saw that creep again. Number 7. Surprise party gone wrong. Hey there, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. I love listening to scary stories from the Creepy Fox, and I wanted to do my part and share one of mine. I hope you all enjoy it. Feel free to leave any comments or questions regarding my story, and I'll try to get back to you in the comments section. Look out for the username, LadyAqua27. Nevertheless, allow me to get started. This was about a year ago when my roommates threw a huge surprise birthday party for my 23rd birthday. It started with my roommate Rachel inviting me to go shopping with her for the whole day. I did find it a bit suspicious she didn't want us to return back to the apartment, but I sort of had a general idea since I had caught her and my other roommate Emma put a bunch of birthday supplies in the back of Emma's Mini Cooper. I just played dumb saying I didn't see anything. Anyways, fast forward to the party. It's about 25 college students fit into one huge apartment. We did the usual college student shenanigans you would expect, and we actually had the cops called on us because of all our ruckus. Oops. I could understand because the fellow apartment goers were having enough of our nonsense, which was why we decided to cut things short by 11 p.m. By that point, we all had some drinks in ourselves, and we weren't all there, so to speak. I ended up crashing on the couch, and I woke up about 4 hours later with a bad headache and the urge to go use the restroom. As I got up, I noticed lying on the floor just a few inches from me was a guy who I assumed was just a friend of ours. By the time I got back to the couch, I no longer saw the guy who was on the floor. Instead, I saw somebody standing in the corner looking through some of our drawers. "Hey, Emma, is that you?" I recall saying, only to be met back with the voice of a male.
No, but who are you, beautiful?
It was really creepy. But again, I made the assumption of it being a friend messing around. It's happened in the past where we will have friends stay over, so no alarm bells to note. I laid back on the couch, not sure why I didn't just go to my room, and then close my eyes for a minute. Then all of a sudden, I feel a weight on the couch, as if somebody sat down, and so I opened my eyes. There was the same tall figure from moments before, and right away, I could tell something was up. I had no idea who he was, as in, this was a complete stranger. Any sort of uncertainty I had went out the window when I saw him holding one of our kitchen knives. I shot straight up like a scared cat, only for him to grasp my arm. I'll admit, I was scared when he said something along the lines of,
"Don't make me hurt you. Just relax. You're going to enjoy this."
Enjoy what? Yeah, you can already guess what this guy was after. I instantly kicked him in the family jewels, and he falls back onto the couch. Let's just say he didn't have the nicest words for me. I booked it to my room, where luckily I saw my friend Steven sleeping on my bed. He's actually a college wrestler, which instantly gave me some relief. "Steven, wake up please. Somebody broke into the house." Yeah, what was he going to do about it? I'm sure he was in no condition to fend anybody off in his condition. To my surprise, Steven was coherent, and immediately he got up as the stranger entered my room, still holding the knife. He comes lunging toward me, and Steven goes for his arm, managing to use his momentum to put him into an arm hold, and he drops the knife. I grabbed it, and then I went to grab whoever else I could find in the house. Another friend, John, was in Emma's room. I wake him up, and he joined Steven less than a minute later. Eventually, they were able to kick him out of the apartment, but that's not before he tried entering back again. By that point, we had called the apartment security, and they were able to escort him out. That was the last time we saw him. Now, you want to know what was so weird about the whole thing? Nobody knew who he was. As far as we could tell, he was just some random who showed up to the party uninvited, and everyone assumed he was somebody else's friend without anyone asking. Which I should say, throughout the whole party I did find his presence sort of strange, as he kept staring at me, albeit from a distance. Anyways, I told my friends that next time if we're having a party, it's only going to be us or family members. Number 8. Gas Station Encounter. This happened sometime in the early 2000s, when I was on a road trip with my dad to visit my Uncle Gary. We were driving from Pennsylvania, and we were heading south to New Orleans. I don't remember exactly which state we had stopped in, but there was one late night where we stopped at this lonely little gas station. It was in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by miles of woods. Combine that with it being late in the night, and it makes a recipe for quite the creepy and mysterious atmosphere. As we pulled in, we were welcomed with a large neon sign of the gas station, flickering on and off, accompanied by the station's light. Each of them danced in unison, like a pair of professional dancers. Anyways, both myself and my dad then exited and entered the gas station convenience store so we could use the restroom. As always, my dad being notorious for being quite the talker, he began a conversation with the cashier, almost like they were long-lost friends. I forget exactly what they were conversing about, but I think it had to do with the Patriots football team t-shirt my dad was wearing. I was quite annoyed, so I told him I would wait in the car. He said he would be there in a minute. No problem with me. I would begin snacking on the chips and soda I had purchased, while listening to the CD I'd burned with my favorite hits. Anyone else remember CD players? Anyways, I lost track of time when all of a sudden, I was interrupted by knocking at my window. Thinking it was my father, I looked up, only to see a complete stranger staring back at me. He really gave me the chills, as this sudden creepy grin formed across his face. It's as if his expression read, "Oh yes, I hit the jackpot."
Hey there, little lady. All by yourself, I see. Where are your parents?
Now, just so you know, I was around 20 years old. I do remember that detail at least. Also, since I was so short, a lot of people mistook me for looking at least 13 or 14, thus possibly explaining the little lady comment. "My dad's in the gas station. He'll be out any minute," I replied back to the stranger, quickly closing what little remained of the open window.
You might want to come out here. Your back tire is flat.
I almost believed him and exited, if it wasn't for the important detail of not seeing any sort of notification next to the speedometer. I gave him a witty response by telling him I would wait for my dad to get here. Then, I saw his facial expression turn from confident to antsy as he kept asking me to step out, each time coming up with another lame excuse. It's by this point I could tell he was up to no good. Not that I would need an assumption to tell me, because he begins pulling at the door handle, trying to make his way in. I had enough. I reach for the car horn and press it in very loud, fast-paced intervals. My dad finally notices, and he runs over to confront this stranger. "Good evening. Was there something I could help you with?"
No, it's nothing. I was just admiring your vehicle.
The guy then slowly backs up before getting into his truck and driving away. When I mentioned the car tire, my dad checks and says there was nothing wrong with it, just as I expected. Now, if you thought that encounter was creepy, the detail my dad mentioned just a few minutes later on the highway was chilling. I'm pretty sure I saw him holding something sharp in his hand. When I approached him, however, he put it back in his pocket, but I know what I saw. If the guy was really planning on using some sort of blade to make his way in, that would have been quite the sight. A sight I hadn't noticed, most likely due to me being so short and being unable to properly see outside of the car. Number 9. Late Night Grocery Run. I'm not sure when you're going to be able to include this story, but at the time of writing, this occurred just a few nights ago. For reference, I'm a single mother of 3, currently living in Chicago. The evening started with me making some spaghetti for my kids and mother, who also happens to live with me, when I realized we were out of sauce and garlic bread. Therefore, I told everybody I would head to the local family-owned grocery store to pick up some supplies. So I drive over, I park, and I begin walking to the front door. However, I was interrupted by a man asking for money. For quick description, he had a bald head, tattoos around his neck and arms, and wore a large white t-shirt with really loose jeans. Best way to describe him was your typical gangster. I ended up telling him I had no extra change, and I thought that was going to be the end of it. Instead, he followed me into the store, albeit keeping at a distance. I did find his behavior quite odd, but I just assumed he was going to ask some other people for money before leaving. Once I grabbed what I needed, I saw him outside the front door, drinking something from a brown paper bag. Pretty obvious what he was doing. Anyways, once I've paid and leave, I try to avoid contact with him, only for him to latch onto my arm.
Where are you going, beautiful? Do you have some change now?
He said, with his warm beer breath sending chills down my spine. No. Now can you let go already? I'm going back home to my family. He lets go, but he continues to follow me, this time opting to ask if I would go back to his place. So much for the money. After telling him no various times and assuring I wanted nothing to do with him, he grows frustrated and puts himself between my car and myself.
Come on, sweetie, don't play hard to get. It'd be a shame if I had to take you by force.
This was starting to get very creepy. Suddenly, he reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small blade, before demanding once again I go back to his apartment, as if that was going to convince me. I was patient enough, and he was starting to get too close for comfort. That's why I drop my groceries, reach into my purse, and I take out my pepper spray before using it. The creep then falls back and begins cursing at me as I head into the grocery store for help. One of the young men that was working as the cashier phoned the police. Meanwhile, another employee locked the front door. As we waited there, the man I had sprayed returned, and he begins kicking at the glass in a pure rush of anger. Dude was really determined, I'll give him that. Anyways, he seemed to give up after about 30 seconds before stumbling over to a water fountain where he began to wash his face. In summary, the guy was put into handcuffs and taken away, and I had my name cleared after the security footage was reviewed. So that was my story of the night I went to go get groceries, only for me to encounter a creep with a switchblade. Number 10. New Year's 2000. Yes, New Year's Eve. What a fun holiday. Staying up until midnight, counting down the hour to the new millennium. What could possibly go wrong? Apparently, quite a bit. To get you started, I was 13 years old, and I was over at my aunt and uncle's house. Alongside me were also my 2 siblings, my brother and sister, each 5 and 7 respectively, and my mother. As for my dad, he was working for Disneyland in Anaheim at the time as a security guard, and he was unfortunately unable to celebrate the countdown with us. He did get some cool bonuses such as these limited edition pins and a certificate, which he still displays in his Disney cabinet. I'm only mentioning my father because he's the kind of man that makes sure nothing bad happens to me or my family. As an example, there was once he suplexed a guy into some trash cans for hitting on my mom at the park, but that's a story for another day. Anyways, everyone else had been asleep, and the only ones awake were myself and my cousin Aria. We were on the back porch drinking some Sunny D, eating some Chex Mix, and watching the Times Square New Year's Eve special on a TV that was plugged into one of the backyard porch outlets. I want to say that around 11 p.m., with some neighbors already lighting up their fireworks for whatever dumb reason, Aria and I noticed somebody crawl over the fence and into Aria's backyard. We sort of just sat there in disbelief, as what looked like a man stumbled over to both of us. He looked like a typical cholo.
Hey kids, do you have a lighter on you I could use?
By his movement and his speech pattern, he was clearly drunk. We both answered no and hoped he would leave back the way he came from. But no. Instead, he started to get angry at the two of us and even began cursing. Gotta love the city of Anaheim. As if things couldn't get any worse, he took out what looked to be like some sort of blade from his back pocket. That was enough for both Aria and I to quickly head back inside and lock the back door. We just stood there in disbelief as the man approached and then started to knock and kick at the back door, demanding we let him in. That wasn't going to happen, which was why we run over to my mom, who then wakes up my uncle. By the time he went to check up on the man, he was long gone. So we thought. Fast forward less than 10 minutes later when we called police, they found the dude passed out underneath my uncle's back porch. Guess that guy had a little too much in his system. Whatever the case, I do remember them putting him in handcuffs and putting him behind their police cruiser. We never saw him again after that. But crazy that we started a brand new year with such a scare. Speaking of which, it would be interesting to see if any of you have had a scary New Year story. Let's hear it. Edit. I just realized the Creepy Fox actually uploaded a New Year Scary Stories video a couple of months ago. I'm not sure how I missed it, but I know how I'm going to spend my afternoon. Number 11. Heading into the fire. There are many scary stories out there with different sorts of themes and outcomes, though most of the time they involve a creepy person such as a stalker, There are other definitions of the word scary that define a chilling experience. This is one of them sent in from a subscriber. This was many years ago, when my friend Alex and I were hanging out. I go with my friend Alex to go and buy some drinks at the liquor store. That brings us to the moment in time we're just chilling and relaxing behind a building. At one point, things started to get hot. Not hot in the sense that we were having a heated argument, but I'm talking about the temperature suddenly rising. Thus, we run to the front of the building, intoxicated from the drinks we just consumed, only to find out the building was on fire. It's here we find a lady who tells us her 4 daughters were inside. Risking our very own safety, we ignore any common sense and run in there to save them. I can still recall all the smoke and fire burning just inches from our frames as we rushed to locate the girls. Luckily, we managed to save them, and once we're outside, we booked it out of there because we were drunk and didn't want to get into trouble. Turned out that for many years, the local news was trying to find out who the tall guys who saved those girls were. The tall guys being Alex and I. Fast forward years later, and we both moved to Alberta. One day I was talking to a coworker at a bar, and he asked me what was one of my craziest and scariest things I'd ever done. Of course, I mentioned the time myself and Alex ran into a burning building, and one of the waitresses manages to overhear the conversation. "So, you were one of the guys who ran into that burning building and saved those girls," she said, with a surprised look on her face. I confirmed the story with her, and then she asks me to walk with her to the front of the bar. "I want you to come back to my place. There's some people I'd like you to meet." I agreed, and a little bit later I drove over to her house. It's there I met 4 young women and an older lady. I called my roommate Alex, and he comes over not too long after. You want to know who they were? The 4 young women were the girls we saved, and the older woman was the mother, the one who asked Alex and I for help that very day. That was honestly one of the most touching moments of our lives. To think, life brought us all back together. Before we get to the final story, I just wanted to go ahead and give you all a quick reminder. If you're ever looking for extra content, whether it be art, previews, or sneak peeks, then make sure to follow me over on my Instagram, @TheCreepyFoxOfficial. Thanks, I'll see you there. But for now, let's get on to our final entry. Number 12. Stalker in the SUV. I was listening to a Scary Stories video of someone being followed by a guy in a van. It reminded me of my own experience. This was quite some time ago, happening around 2007. I had really good friends that I constantly play with all the time. For privacy reasons, I'm going to change their names, so I'll refer to them as Robert and Amanda. Anyways, the 3 of us have been enjoying another typical day, playing and sharing laughs on Robert's front yard. Suddenly, a black SUV starts to drive down our street. When it got close to our group, it started to slow its pace, and we were able to see the driver. She appeared to be a woman in her 40s. She had long tangled up hair, and she wore black glasses. Being at a younger age, I didn't think much of it, but in retrospect, those details about her appearance should have been a warning that something was seriously wrong. She smiled creepily, and then she began pointing her cell phone towards us, almost as if she was taking pictures or recording. We all froze for a few seconds, remembering all the things our parents had told us growing up. Luckily, our homes are very close to one another, thus we each run back to our separate houses. Of course, we ended up telling our parents, who then go outside to look for the vehicle. All they were able to witness was the vehicle turning off the end of our street. But here's the really frightening part. No less than 30 seconds later, we see that same SUV slowly drive by our homes, the same way it had arrived, as if she was looking for us. Our parents stared the vehicle down, hoping to scare her away. Nevertheless, my friends and I were freaked out, and we refused to go outside for some time. Luckily, we never saw her again, and I still live on that same street, even today. Hey everybody, what is going on? It is the Creepy Fox here. I wanted to change things up, so to speak. I went from doing the video on the computer and decided to do it on the handheld, so kind of mix it up on you guys. But if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a thumbs up. Make sure to leave a comment telling me what you all thought. And make sure to subscribe. There's still a lot of you who still haven't subscribed, actually. A lot of you haven't subscribed that watch my videos, so make sure you click subscribe. It's very easy, and turn on those notifications. That way you can make sure you get every single video that I upload. Also, just wanted to make sure, if you haven't seen the previous uploads, make sure you go back and watch them. For whatever reason, I have no clue what's happening, but a lot of you haven't been watching the older videos, which is a shame because, you're always asking for more uploads, and then the viewership is just... So actually, I wanted to go ahead and provide an update regarding my work. In the previous video, I ended up mentioning how we weren't supposed to be opening anytime soon. And we just got an email from the company saying that we aren't going to be opening for the foreseeable future, so... Ooh, rip. But with all of those things mentioned, I think it's time for Comments with Creepy. The part of the video where we go back to the previous video and we check out what you had to say. I picked out a handful of them. Gotta love the ever-changing camera angle, am I right? I love not being professional. Look at this, woo! Okay, so let's go ahead and get to the first comment. It comes to us from Carrie, and it says, "Just what I need. Totally take my mind off of things. Thanks for the content you deliver. Always enjoy your channel." Well, thank you, Carrie Ann. I always make sure to provide you guys with the best possible narrations I can possibly give to you. So thank you. I hope I pronounced your name correctly. Is it Lorelei Catherine? I always stay till the end of the videos. For you and pretty much every creator I watch. It's the funniest bit. The whole video is amazing, but how can anyone just click off and miss how adorable you are? Aw, thank you. I appreciate you and what you do. P.S. I don't believe in the skip ads button either. See, friends? That's awesome. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate it. It's always nice to hear from people that... don't just stick around for the stories. They actually stick around for me personally. It's really cool to meet those kinds of people because that just goes to show you the awesome people who love what I do. So thank you. And then the last comment I had was from, I hope I pronounced your name right too, as it says, Sambuang. Awesome videos as always. Hope to get a shout out from you, Creepy Fox. From Thailand. Thanks. Stay safe, everyone. Well, shout out to you. Thank you for watching the video, and thanks for leaving your comment. I appreciate it. So that's going to be it from me. Woo! I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Here's my room, by the way. I hope you all enjoyed it. There's the computer. I hope you all enjoyed it. Make sure, like I said, make sure to subscribe. Make sure to leave a comment. There goes my knee. Make sure to subscribe if you're brand new, and I will catch you all in the next video. But until then, take care, and have yourselves an amazing day.